What's going on, guys? It's the RPO Podcast. We are back in business. I apologize. I was on mute, but we are here. We are good. I am your humble host, Jerome Jones. We got Ray Roberts in the building. How you doing today, Ray?
I'm good, Jerome. How are you?
I am good. I am good. I am excited to be here today. We got a lot to talk about. It's been a lot of college football news going on. So let's get right into it. I'm going to do the quick rundown of the college news that's been going on this week. So first and foremost, we got informed that Sam Ratliff, quarterback for Oklahoma, been named the starter. I don't think anybody really thought otherwise, but he got named the starter today, so that's good for him. That's great. Big Ten is eyeing a Thanksgiving game, even though they are saying it's still a long shot, but they are eyeing a Thanksgiving comeback. So we'll see how that goes. ULM DC Mike Collins has resigned from being the DC for their school. So last minute, it's unfortunate for the team, but I believe their linebacker coach is going to be doing DC duties there. So Alabama gets 2 primetime games this week. So this year. So I say give them more. So but hey, man, there's not a lot of football going on. Might as well have one of the top teams get showed more. I mean, why not? You know,
Yep.
but they do have 2 primetime games, so that's always exciting to see that one of the top teams are got that. Also, we have some hearted news. Defensive lineman from Oklahoma State, Haskell Garrett, got shot, gunshot. So please, prayers out to him and his family. Hopes that he recover from that. That's definitely a sad story. No matter who or what it is, you never want to see a young man get struck down like that. So, prayers out to that. So let's get right into some football. We got football this week, right, man? First football game, 2020. It's exciting to see. It was a pretty good game too. First game of the week was Austin Peay versus Central Arkansas. Ray, were you able to watch that game?
I really was not, Jerome. I mean, I watched some highlights. I mean, probably a decent game. I didn't really get the chance to watch it. I was watching high school football all day that day. I mean,
Hey,
well,
football's
there's a lot of
football.
games, some games out in Ohio, some games in Indiana. Some people going to Notre Dame. Some people going to Ohio State. I just watched it all. I started watching it early in the morning, and they played like 3 games back to back, and that's really what I watched all day.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, you missed out on the good one, Ray, because it was definitely a good game. It was down to the wire. It was a little sloppy in the beginning, but let's talk about it, Ray. So from what you've seen, what do you like? What did you like about the game? Was there anything that stuck out to you in that game?
No, in the highlights, it looked like a decent, like some decent highlights. I think really what you're going to find about football, and this is college and pro in general, it's going to be sloppy to start out. It's going to be.
Yeah, definitely. And that was actually one of the points I was going to put out. It was very sloppy to start out, and I think that's going to be with football in general, not only just college football, but in general with not a lot of football going on this offseason. It's going to be very, very sloppy. You can see it with special teams or a couple of special team issues. The snapper oversnapped it a couple of times. There was a lot of big plays. That means a lot of assignments not being where it's supposed to be. Offense is not clicking because, not a lot of camaraderie. So, you was gonna say something, Ray?
Yeah, I just think that, like you said, you're not going to see. I think especially early on, you're going to see a lot of guys not communicating very well. I mean, very little. The defenses like usual will probably be ahead of the offenses because defenses more react than strategy sometimes. You know what I mean? So
definitely, it was very. I'll give you this though. It was very satisfying to see the first offensive play in the game go for 75 yards. CJ Evans ran on an option route 75 yards on that play. It was exciting. It was like that whole college football is back moment. Like it just got a big smile on your face. Like yes, this is like let's go. This is how it's gonna be. And it kind of tailed off a little bit, but it ended off as a really good game. I was very surprised that first play that they let their quarterback, I forgot his name, but they let him run on that play because he just coming off an injury, a knee injury, and right off the bat, there was like, kid, go out there and do your thing. Like no training wheels, go out there. And I love when a coach have that confidence in their players to be able to tell them and let them go out there like that. So that was very exciting for me.
How are my one concern, and again, this is college and pro, are the officials going to let the players feel themselves out? Or are they going to throw flags on every little thing they say?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The NFL is really bad with that already. Mm-hmm. So if it gets even worse because the team's not being exactly right with everything, it could really be like every other player is a commercial. You know what I mean? So
yeah, it's definitely be interesting to see. Like I said, that it was an interesting game though. It was a good first game to get the feeling back a little bit, and we got some games this week that we're gonna talk about a little bit. But let's get into before we get into that, let's talk about some of these players that are opting out or weekly opt-out updates. So as you already know, me and Ray goes to these updates on who opted out so far. We got 4 players that opted out, some big names already, and we're gonna go right into the first one. Ray, let's talk about Kenneth Gainswell from Memphis. What do you feel about how you feel about him? How you feel about him opting out, and where you see him going in the draft at this point?
I think he's a solid second-day pick right now. I think Kenneth Gainwell is a very underrated football player. He's probably one of the best all-purpose backs in college football.
Right.
Again, my only concern is if there's no combine, you're going on last year's tape. No one can test you, blah, blah, blah. I don't see how not playing this year, if you can, why you would do that. I mean, it would be different if you could get drafted right now.
Yeah.
I mean, except for injury, that is the only downfall. Correct. Everything else can help you out. I mean, you put another good year of game film out there, then you can throw in the combine, maybe. But if you do that, then maybe you're a late first round, early second round. Right now, I wouldn't take him before the third round.
Yeah, I see him in that third, fourth round range. Very versatile player. Kind of remind me of the player that came from Kentucky that got drafted to Oakland. Len, forgot his last name, but Lynn Baldwin. There you go, Lynn Baldwin.
Okay.
He reminded me of him.
Baldwin. I think Gainwell is a good I think he had like almost 1,400 yards.
Mm-hmm.
Had another 60 receptions. The kid is a really good football player. Again, you're talking about one really outstanding year of game film, and hopefully the combine to carry you through the draft. If the combine, for some reason, the season is the season. Yeah. We may not really get a full season. We already know that. There is that possibility. But if you don't play this year and you don't play any game film out there, again, if there is no combine, and anybody who tells you they know what's going to happen in February, March, they're clueless. They have no clue.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting to see. Let's get to our next opt-out player. This one's a big one. Ray, I've been talking about this guy since last year. He was my favorite wide receiver that was in the college football last year. LSU's Jamar Chase, big opt-out. Especially for a team that's actually going to be playing in the fall. They got him late opt-out. It's going to be very difficult for their offense because he was a big part of that. For a team that already had a lot of players leave for the NFL draft, Ray, how do you feel about Jamar Chase's departure, and how you think it affects his team, and then also his draft stock?
It's going to affect the team big time.
Yeah,
You took a lot of playmakers off that team from last year. Now you take the guy who was the playmaker from that offense.
mm-hmm.
And can we reevaluate how we think LSU is going to be this year now? Because they're not going to be as good, obviously. And honestly, can we stop kidding ourselves about these kids are not these are all business decisions now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Think that, honestly, we like college football more than some of the kids that play college football do. They are making business decisions, and we love college football.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is the conversation that we were having in last off season's podcast, and even during the season last year, because you have these college players are going to start opting out. They started opting out a lot more last year during the bowls and things like that, and that was strictly just business decision. This might be a little bit of health decisions, but also it might be mostly business decisions as well.
I'm not saying that there's no concern about COVID, but I mean, okay, but everybody on your team is in the same boat.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, again, the difference between Chase and Gainwell is Chase has one of the great college seasons of all time as game film. Okay. Correct. And then he's going to, he can still run probably if the combine happens. If not, they can always have a pro day for him. Mm-hmm. Again, I hate when you see one of the best players in college football opt out because it hurts the season. I mean, I'll be honest about it,
It really does. And when this news came out, me and Ray were kind of talking about it. We was like, this is going to be a rough season. It's going to be a rough season. It's going to be one of the roughest seasons that we've seen. At the end of the day, we are glad that we're going to have some football going on, but this is just going to be rough. It's just going to be tough. Also, LSU got another player that opted out as well. Their defensive tackle, Tyler Chauvin.
Yeah.
He opted out as well. Same thing. A team that already had tons and tons and tons of talent. Leave that. Well, not tons and tons, but you get what I'm saying.
He does weigh 346 pounds, so tons and tons and tons.
It definitely feels like a ton with everybody that left in the draft last year. And with the weight as well, right? But definitely. How you feel about his opt out?
Again, complete business decision. My only thing, if I'm a team now, I have to wonder how much these guys love it like football.
Mm-hmm.
Jamar Chase is one thing. He's going to be an early pick. He's going to be a first, second round player without a doubt. Tyler Chauvin is a zero tech nose tackle. Where's he getting drafted? 5th round? No better than 4th round. No way.
That was actually going to be my question.
So this year he could have went out there and he's lost some players on both sides of the ball, LSU. If he goes out there and has another big year, is as good as last year or matches that, maybe somebody says, you know what, we really need a defensive tackle that can clog up the middle. Let's take him in the 3rd round.
It's funny.
Right now, I wouldn't touch him to the 4th round. What do you think about it?
What's crazy too is that if you look at this past season's draft, a lot of teams been picking the Power 5 players more than any other players because of COVID and the big unknown. So this is the year that you might want to actually play because you might get drafted even higher up if you're in the Power 5 simply because teams don't didn't have the chance to not going to have the chance to evaluate these guys on film, things like that. So a lot of those players are going to get pushed up even higher. So
all you need to do is go out there and have good games against Alabama, Clemson, and any of the other good teams. Well, they're not going to play each other. But you know what I mean? Any team in the SEC who's a good team, go out there and play good that day, and you'll improve your draft status.
Mm-hmm.
Not now. Yeah. Now you're a 4th round pick if you get drafted that high.
If that. Yeah. So that's crazy.
He's not even a 3 tech defensive tackle or 2A tech who can get on the outside shoulder and give you great pass rush. He is a zero tech, take on double teams and just clog up the middle. That's all he is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's not a lot of teams that want that. Also, like
you had teams that will play that in certain formations, early down.
Yeah,
but you don't
but
have teams.
Not as the guy.
Nobody does it enough to make him a primo draft pick.
Yeah, I agree. Interesting. All right, let's talk about our last player. This literally just came out hours before me and Ray got on, so it's a late addition to this. It's a big name because me and Ray were higher on this team because of him being on this team. It is new addition quarterback from Georgia, Jamie Newman, opted out just hours ago. Breaking news. Ray, how do you feel about this, man? This is crazy because remember some podcasts, a couple episodes on the podcast ago, I was like, oh, I'm not that high on Georgia, and then I totally forgot about Newman. I was like, oh, wait, and I reverted. Now that he opts out, how do you feel about Georgia right now?
I have to completely rethink what I think about Georgia. They're not going to be as good.
Yeah.
And here's the thing, I want to say this, and this goes for Jamar Chase too. Can we stop talking about these kids getting paid like they're doing something for their colleges, dude? They're out there playing football, putting good game film out there so they can get drafted. Yeah. The college helps them out, and they give them an education for the guys that want to take advantage of it. So I don't want to hear any more about playing these kids, okay? Because they're kids and they're getting a lot and they're overpaid as they are, okay?
Yeah, that is true. That is
some
true.
Some of these tuitions are anywhere between $80,000 and $180,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. That's not enough. I mean,
these guys, they are getting royal treatment. I mean, a lot of people don't know and don't see some of the stuff they are. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are universities that are struggling and not able to provide for some of these kids, the lower school kids, but the kids that are in these big schools, the Power 5 schools, I mean, come on, they are definitely getting treated.
Yes, and here's the thing. They are the ones that when you talk about paying the players, you got to be talking about the Power 5 teams and kids, right?
Exactly.
But they're the ones that get the most out of this.
Correct.
They're the ones that, man, we all talk about playing in the SEC and playing in the Big Ten because not only do you play in two of the best conferences in college football, it gives you the stepping stone to make it in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Okay? Period. Yeah. And that and a good education isn't enough for you, don't go to college. Do something else.
You're right. But let's get back to Jamie Newton a little bit. So with the opt out, where do you see him going? Because he was on a fringe. I think he was on a fringe of a lot of quarterbacks. I think some people had him late first, some people had him in the second round. Some people even knocked him in the third round, which was kind of ridiculous when I seen it. Ray, where you see him? Did you see him before he opted out and after?
I don't think he's any better than a third round pick right now either.
Wow.
I think he's an excellent athlete.
Yeah.
Who has accuracy issues. I mean, and when you're talking about the NFL, you're talking about the number one aspect is accuracy. Mm-hmm. Above all else, you have guys that play in and out of the pocket.
Yeah.
But their accuracy, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, but and so on and so on, is what separates these guys.
Yeah. Was that your grade before he opted out or after? Like, I mean,
my grade on him I don't have him. He's an athletic quarterback.
Yeah.
Is he the prospect anywhere near the prospect that Cam Newton was coming out of college? No, it's not even close.
No.
I mean, so what is he then?
So my thing was that seeing him at a bigger school, at that bigger stage with Georgia, some of the weapons that he got, I thought that he could have definitely helped himself in this year, and that's why originally, and when I was saying that, I seen some people had him in the third round before the draft. I mean, this year, I thought he would have at least rose to a second at least, but. Now I kind of agree that he's not gonna. I don't think he's gonna be one of the top quarterbacks because, like you said, when he was at Wake Forest, he wasn't the quarterback that he could have been. I think at Georgia it would have elevated him, his skill set and what he could have did. I mean, don't get me wrong, he could still be a good to decent quarterback in the NFL, but like him opting out is crazy.
I think that maybe somebody got into his ear and told him that maybe because of his athleticism, maybe he'd go in the second round. I mean, I don't know. I don't get it. So I agree with you. I think that if he'd have went to Georgia this year and had a big year, that would have improved his draft stock.
Exactly. Yeah. We want to thank Remy for being in the chat room. We do appreciate you being in. He says, just cancel the season. This is getting ridiculous.
Agreed.
Totally agree. We
didn't say a month ago when we first started talking about this. As long as the better players aren't all going to opt out, but that's what you're seeing. You're seeing a Kenneth Gainwell, who was a good player and will be drafted without a doubt. Second round, third round, he'll be drafted.
Yeah.
And so he was like, all right, well, it's not worth it then. So does he love college football or does he want to be a pro?
Crazy. I
agree. You don't have the Big East playing or the Big Ten playing already. If it's just going to be continuously every time these guys feel like, you know what, it's not worth it to me. I mean, and honestly, we've talked about it before. Even if you are one of these teams that play in that Final Four, are you going to be the best team in college football this year? Or are you going to be who's left standing because your players didn't opt out?
Yeah, definitely. All right, let's move along and let's talk about some ACC football. So, if you've been watching us the last two podcasts, we talked about the SEC schedule, we talked about the Big 12 schedule, and now we're going to go into the ACC schedule. So what I'm going to do is read off these matchups. There we go. So let's go right into it. Week 1, we got UAB at Miami, VMI versus Virginia, Clemson versus Wake Forest, Duke at Notre Dame, Georgia Tech versus Florida State, West Kentucky versus Louisville. And Syracuse versus North Carolina, and Austin Peay versus Pitt. Any of those teams or games jump out to you, Ray?
No.
Not one.
No.
Not
one.
Not
one. Not one. Just a bunch of slop, really. I mean, Florida State at Georgia Tech, maybe a half-decent game.
Yeah.
That's it.
Maybe.
Everything else is really slop. The NC State and Virginia Tech could be a competitive game. If you're just looking for competitive games, nothing else. I think North Carolina will just steamroll Syracuse. I think Louisville will pretty much handle Western Kentucky. Duke should not be really much of a problem for Notre Dame, even though I hate saying that because I don't like jinxing myself. Clemson at Wake Forest, please. I mean, who's Boston College playing your schedule? I don't have their game here.
Boston College? I don't have that either.
It says to be determined, I guess. I don't know who that means, but
no, Boston College. They got Duke. I'm sorry. No, that's week 2. I'm sorry.
No, Notre Dame has Duke.
Yeah, I don't have them.
On my schedule says TBD, to be determined, so it doesn't tell me who they're playing.
Yeah.
Maybe they're not playing. I don't know for sure. But no, I don't see anything. Is it Boston College Pitt, maybe?
No, that's Austin Peay.
Oh, well, that's garbage too. Because I have Boston College TBD on my schedule and Pittsburgh TB. I thought maybe they were playing each other. Now, Boston College and Pittsburgh would be a decent game. But again, this is This is crap, basically.
Yeah. That's a bad week. So I think week 1 we're gonna be struggling for some good games in
Well, if
general.
you remember,
But
the ACC schedule in week 1 was horrible too.
yeah, it was
You know what I
definitely.
mean? Not having the other, like the other conferences playing, and the added conference games that are intriguing usually from
Mhm.
week to week. It's really going to make for a subpar season. I
Yeah.
agree with Lenny. Cancel the season.
All
And
right,
I
let's get.
love college football, Jerome. I do. You know I
We
do. I mean,
both. Hey,
I
that's
would
what
miss
we
it.
on this podcast for. We love
Yeah,
college football, man.
I would miss it. I mean, I really would. But I mean, to have a season that's as nondescript as this going to be, hopefully no one gets hurt, because really, if anybody really gets hurt, it's not worth it at all. It's really
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
You know?
I will go on the bright side on this. The one good thing that probably come out of this is that we might find some kind of diamond in the rough, somebody that's replacing a opt-out player or something like that. They might shine, and it might be beneficial for them. Which I always want the next player to come in and get their opportunity and to look good. Not saying that's going to happen because there's a reason that they're a backup most of the time.
Well, I'll
But
be honest with you. If I'm one of these guys that are going to play now because somebody else stepped down,
oh yeah,
I'm going to go out there and play and try to ball.
oh yeah,
Why not?
take
Why
yeah,
not? I
yeah.
mean, why not? I mean,
Take your opportunity.
that's the best thing about it. The guys that are playing,
Yeah.
are the ones that really want to play. Apparently,
Mm-hmm. I
maybe
agree.
they don't have as much financially to lose. I'm sure that's part of it. But I mean, at least they want to play. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, that's what bothers me about football players sometimes. They all say, "Oh, I love to play. I love to play." No, you just like playing. A lot of you guys really just love money. Okay?
Yeah. Yeah. All right, let's get into week 2. Let's get into week 2. We got Boston College versus Duke, like I talked about earlier, mistakenly said. We got Catterall. I always say that name wrong. Versus Clemson. That's gonna be so bad. Um, Sanford versus Florida State, UCF versus Georgia Tech, Miami versus Louisville, Charlotte versus North Carolina, Wake Forest versus NC State, South Carolina versus Notre Dame, Syracuse versus Pitt, and Virginia versus Virginia Tech. All right, so Ray, I think there's a few decent games in there. What do you think about week 2?
Virginia Tech is
Yeah,
a decent game.
for sure.
Pitt, Syracuse will be a competitive game.
Yeah.
That's Georgia Tech. Central Florida could be an okay game. Who's Clemson playing?
Cattle.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's it. I mean, you have a couple competitive games, but really, it's
Yeah.
nothing to write home about. I mean,
Yeah.
Pitt, Syracuse, yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of decent games. It's better than week 1 that's for sure. But nothing that like screams off the board. It's like, oh man, that's a great game. But if you love football, you just want to watch some things. I suggest obviously Virginia Tech and Syracuse and Pitt. That's probably the only two that are really really good.
Yeah, they're decent games. Like I said, Georgia Tech and UCF should be an okay game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that one too. Yeah. For sure. All right, let's go into week 3. We got Florida State versus Miami, Georgia Tech versus Syracuse, Louisville versus Pitt, Notre Dame versus Wake Forest, NC State versus Virginia Tech, and the teams that are by are Boston College, Clemson, Duke, North Carolina, and Virginia. So, out of week 3, who you got? What you like in that week, Ray?
NC State, Virginia Tech, I guess, is an okay game.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia Tech at Syracuse would be okay. Florida State, Miami should be a decent game.
Yeah,
I mean, it's not as far as competition. It's not horrible.
Yeah, that's probably
competitive games.
Yeah, and I feel like the schedule for this one for the ACC is a little bit more. They try to make it backloaded a little bit more. It seems like So
Well, I mean, really, and you have Clemson, and I want to believe that Notre Dame is going to be good this year, and I think they're
yeah.
going to be good in this conference. I think they'll compete every week. I think they'll win way more games than they should lose.
Mm-hmm.
But after that, man, it's just a bunch of teams. I mean, I think Miami and Florida State could be decent this year. They have talent. But if I'm going to go by what they showed last year, I'm not confident they will be. We'll
Definitely.
see. You know?
With Notre Dame playing the ACC teams, they should be allowed to play their championship game.
I think they can.
They can. They said they can.
I think they can. I think they will play in the championship game if they have enough room.
Wow.
They play Clemson too. So
Yeah.
for a Notre Dame fan, yeah, man, the game's gonna be fine for me. But
Yeah.
I'm looking at I watch Notre Dame no matter what every week. But I like watching good football. Am I going to see as much good football as I usually do? Absolutely not.
Nah.
And that's the meat and potato of it for me. I like good football. Am I going to see really good football this year? Really on either level, college or pro? Not as good as it should have been.
Yeah. We'll see though.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see though. All right, let's get to week 4. There's only four games. We got North Carolina at Boston State. I'm about to say Boston
College.
Boston College. I said exactly what I was not supposed to say. Boston College. Well, Virginia versus Clemson, Virginia Tech versus Duke, and NC State versus Pitt. So Florida State, Georgia Tech, Louisville, not Maryland, Miami, Notre Dame, Syracuse, and Wake Forest are all on by week 4. That's why we only got 4 games. So week 4, very, very light, very, very light. Any of those games stand out to you?
No. No. I mean, NC State at Pitt should be somewhat competitive.
Yeah.
If the other teams are what I expect, nah. I think North Carolina is a better team than Boston College. Are they a more physical team? That'll be the decision on how much they win by if they can play as physical as Boston College. But they have more talent than Boston College. I like their coach better than Boston College. Clemson versus Virginia, they can play that game in the middle of anywhere with nobody in the stadium. Clemson would just roll over them.
Yeah.
Duke versus Virginia Tech, I don't see that being competitive either. And NC State at Pitt will be competitive, but it probably won't be a great game. So
yeah, I agree. All right, week 5, Louisville versus Georgia Tech, Old Dominion versus Wake Forest, Pitt versus Boston College, Miami versus Clemson, Duke versus Syracuse, Florida State at Notre Dame, Virginia Tech versus North Carolina, NC State versus Virginia. So please excuse me, I'm on some crazy stuff right now. I can't speak. But anyway, Ray, any games out of those?
Clemson versus Miami at Miami. I mean, it'll be interesting for 3 quarters maybe, and then that's it. Florida State at Notre Dame.
2 quarters, right?
Yeah, I mean, Florida State at Notre Dame could be somewhat competitive. We'll see.
Yeah.
No, I don't see anything else. NC State at Virginia. I think it'll be competitive. I don't think it'll be great. Boston College versus Pittsburgh. Don't think it'll be great. Think it'll be somewhat competitive. But if that's what you're looking for, you'll get that. Yeah. Same thing with Georgia Tech and Louisville the day before. That'll be competitive. I don't know about how great of a game it'll be. It'll be competitive though.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Pitt versus Boston College is the only one that really stands out to me. That might be a game just to watch to see two teams that are probably going to be duking it out a little bit. Other than that, I don't think there's a couple of slugfests in here, like, you know, guys are just going to get destroyed. Some of them, like you said, Miami Clemson is definitely one that you still want to watch, obviously, but you know, Clemson is going to pull away from that game. So yeah, definitely. All right, so let's go to week 6. We got Boston College at Virginia Tech, Clemson versus Georgia Tech, Duke versus NC State, North Carolina at Florida State. Excuse me. Louisville versus Notre Dame, Pitt versus Miami, Liberty versus Syracuse, and Virginia versus Wake Forest. Ooh, man, this is looking rough. Man, Pitt might not even. Yeah, this is
That's not a very good week of college football.
UNC versus Florida State, maybe.
I mean, I think it could be okay. I think North Carolina is a better team. I think they'll win.
Yeah.
It could be competitive. I think Clemson, Jordan. No, I think Boston College versus Virginia Tech could be a decent game, fairly physical. But I don't see anything where it's going to be that great of a game. I don't see any games here that really stand out as far as Florida State, North Carolina is probably, if you look at both teams, they have as much combined talent as any of the other games.
Yeah.
So.
I agree.
No other game says, ooh, I got to watch that. And even Florida State, North Carolina, I'll watch it, but it's not like, again, it's not like I have to watch it that week. I'll watch it if I catch it. You know what I mean? So
exactly. And it makes it hard with so many teams out. You're going to get these games where it's just like, some of these games, honestly, you're probably going to be just games you have on and you're doing something on the side while you're having them on, to be honest. So
that's just the reason of why I even do it all. So,
But we
know the answer to that, though, because, man, this is why I don't hold it against all against the kids, because it is all about money. We already know that.
Yep.
So,
definitely. It's definitely about the money. So, diluted season we're gonna have here. So let's go to week 7. Georgia Tech versus Boston College, Syracuse versus Clemson, Florida State versus Louisville, Virginia versus Miami, NC State versus North Carolina, Notre Dame versus Pitt, Virginia Tech versus Wake Forest. Duke is on by. Yes.
Garbage. North Carolina, NC State would be a big game for the people of North Carolina, but that's about it.
Definitely that rivalry game. Yeah. But nationally, nothing really.
Nothing.
Yeah. Week 8. We're just rolling right through these. Week 8. Boston College versus Clemson. Charlotte versus Duke. Notre Dame versus Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech versus Louisville, North Carolina versus Virginia, Wake Forest versus Syracuse, and we got Florida State, Miami, NC State, and Pitt all on buys. Woo! It's gonna be a long season.
That is bad football right there, is what you just talked about, man. That's bad. That's a horrible week of football, is what that is.
Yeah, that was probably one of the worst ones.
That's really bad. That's a shame.
I don't know if it's worse 8 or 1. 1 was pretty bad too.
1 was bad. I mean, that's just a bad week of football all around. Really.
Yeah. Week 9, Miami versus NC State, Boston College versus Syracuse, Clemson versus Notre Dame, North Carolina versus Duke, Pitt versus Florida State, Louisville versus Virginia, Liberty versus Virginia Tech, and we got Georgia Tech and Wake Forest on buys. I don't see anything on here either. Right?
Yeah.
Clemson Notre Dame is probably going to be one that's going to be competitive.
That's going to be like the best game we've talked about so far this year in that conference.
Literally.
Again,
and that's not. And on top of that, it's not a good game. I just don't think.
It probably won't be a great game when it's all said and done, but it'll be a big game for Notre Dame.
It's the best game. It's literally the best game of the season for ACC so far.
Tough.
Yeah, rough year. Week 10, Notre Dame versus Boston College, Duke versus Virginia, Florida State versus NC State, Pitt versus Georgia Tech, Miami versus Virginia Tech, Wake Forest versus UNC, and we got Clemson, Louisville, and Syracuse on buys. Anytime you have Clemson on buys, it's a bad week.
15 years ago, Boston College Notre Dame would have been a good game, but not now. Even 10 years ago, but not now. Miami at Virginia Tech will be a decent game.
Yeah.
It's probably the best game of the week.
Yeah.
In that conference, anyway. So.
Yeah. Maybe Pitt versus Georgia Tech. Maybe that might be one.
It'll be competitive, probably.
Yeah. I mean, that's competitive games. Rather, I'm sorry.
I mean, it'll be competitive.
Nothing eye popping.
Duke and Virginia could be competitive.
Yeah, that's true too. Too. All right, week 11, we got Syracuse versus Louisville, Clemson versus Florida State, Wake Forest versus Duke, Georgia Tech versus Miami, Liberty versus NC State, Virginia Tech versus Pitt, and we have Boston College, North Carolina, Notre Dame, and Virginia all on buys for week 11. Wake Forest versus Duke, maybe.
That'd be Georgia Tech at Miami probably wouldn't be. Again, if that were 5-10 years ago, that'd be a good game. Mm-hmm. Clemson at Florida State, it'd be interesting for a half.
Yeah. Clemson's gonna take this, man. Clemson's just gonna take this.
There's nothing there.
Yeah. Week 12. Let's go into week 12. We got Louisville versus Boston College. I think this is probably the most games out of this whole season. But anyway, Louisville versus Boston College, Notre Dame versus North Carolina. That's a good one. Pitt versus Clemson, Pitt versus Georgia Tech, Virginia versus Florida State, Miami versus Wake Forest, and NC State versus Syracuse, and then we got Virginia Tech on our bye. So that Notre Dame versus UNC. That's probably a good. I think that's going to be a good game.
Pretty good game.
Yeah,
should be a good game. I really think you're talking in that conference. You're probably talking about the best three teams right now. Is Notre Dame? Well, not in this order. Don't anybody get crazy. Not in this order. Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina. However you want to shake it out.
Yeah, no, for sure. They are the best three teams. Definitely want to see how that goes, man. By that time, Sam Howell should be under, have a lot of games under his belt, even more than his freshman year. I think he's gonna be good this year, man. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm expecting them to be pretty good. So
for sure.
Remember, I think I had them in the championship game against Clemson earlier, but that was before Notre Dame decided to jump into that conference so they could have game.
It's going to be probably
either associate with a conference or don't play football this year.
It's going to be most likely them and Clemson in that championship game. Most likely. Yeah. All right. We got the last week, which is December 5th. We got Boston College versus Virginia, Clemson versus Georgia Tech, Florida State versus Virginia Tech.
Virginia Tech. Yeah, okay. All right.
I'm sorry. Clemson versus Virginia Tech. Florida State versus Duke, Georgia Tech versus NC State, Wake Forest versus Louisville, North Carolina versus Miami, Syracuse versus Notre Dame. I thought they was going to be doing as good for the last week, and it's not really that good.
No, I think that
a couple of decent games.
Usually, not the last couple of years. Usually, though, Georgia Tech, Miami, Florida State, Virginia Tech are all quality teams. We're just talking about down years for these teams right now.
Yeah.
So how the conference and the schedule looks like dog manure, dude. To be honest with you.
Yeah, it's rough. It's definitely rough.
It is. Again, you're talking we look at the teams: Boston College, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Miami. And again, Florida State, we're talking about teams that usually are pretty good, just not now,
Yeah. And like we've been talking about with some of these opt-outs, it makes some of these teams even worse. Like Miami, they could have been a really good defensive team, but
Yeah,
Gregory,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Virginia Tech. I'm sorry, Virginia Tech lost a couple kids.
Fairly, I think they lost like
Yeah.
10 kids. I think.
I mean, it just makes the whole farce of the whole season. I mean, I'm going to watch it because I'm a junkie and I have to watch college football, but I'm not going to be happy about it. I'm not. I mean, it's a shame.
Yeah. It's going to be a very, very diluted season. I'm very interested to see how this play out. I don't think it's going to play out that well. You're going to see some very, very bad games, and it's going to be. You're going to have to get very selective of what you're going to watch.
I'm going to be honest with you, Jerome. As much as I agree with people, and I do think maybe they should just shut down the season, when it gets to be cold outside, if there's no college football on TV, I'm not going to be a happy camper, man. I'm not going to lie about it. As much as I think right now they probably shouldn't play this season, come October, November, December, January, I'm going to want college football to watch.
That's true. We're going to be in the house, cold winter.
They play the season. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're going to want to be in front of that TV in the sky that's warm, and then you're not going to be able to get good football. It's going to be rough in the winter.
I'm going to admit, if I was a bigger fan of the Big Ten, I probably would feel differently too. Like they should just shut everything down. Yeah. I probably would feel that way even more than I do now. But I know now I'm watching these kids drop out, and I'm listening to all these teams that aren't going to play this year. I'm like, why are they doing this?
Yeah.
But again, there's a little selfish part of me that says, thank God they're doing this. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel, right? That's exactly how I feel. So we're gonna stop the podcast now. I hope you guys enjoy week one. It's gonna be a very interesting week one. Guys, please make sure you check us out on InsideTheHatches.com where you find all our content. Also, we'd like to thank everybody that's in here, everybody that comment. Remy, thank you for being on. We do appreciate you. If you guys want to, please check out, we have a Discord right now. So go on Facebook, get the Discord link on there, follow it on there. You get all your news, everything on there really fast. So make sure you check that out. We got great things. We talk about fantasy football, NFL news, college news, all that is all in there. Make sure you go in there and check that out. Also, check out the fantasy football draft on Sunday at 7:00. It's going to be live on all these platforms that you are watching on right now. So make sure you check that out. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch. We're going to have that on there. It's going to be live. Ray is in that draft. Ray, what position you got again?
I have number 6.
Number 6. That's a great number too, Ray. That's a good spot. That's a great spot, Ray. Very good spot. So we're gonna see where Ray's gonna get, who Ray's gonna draft in Sunday's league. So make sure you check that out. Also, please make sure you check that out on all the platforms, and also make sure you listen to all our player interviews. It's gonna be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. So make sure you check all that out on there. You don't have to pay for anything. You don't have to subscribe or anything. It helps us out. It really supports the channel and everything, and help us improve and get to the next level. If you do like this, please make sure you like on YouTube as well. So thank you so much. I'm Jerome Jones. We got Ray Roberts. We'll see you next week when we have some football. Hopefully something emerges out of those games. So we'd like to thank you guys so much. You have a great night. Stay safe, and we see you next week. Peace.